number 436 with us.
All right, talking about communication. I want to kind of go off on the side here. What have you guys observed or noticed some other great forms of communication that you've seen in the business world, or just in general? You know, there's school, YouTube, wherever you.
Baskin Rollins and Duncan.
What do you mean?
I mean, they needed each other to kind of survive at one point. So they talked it over, said how much money can we make together and separate, and they combined together, changed all their stores to Baskin Rollins and Duncan.
Okay, so you're saying as a negotiation, they have clear communication to negotiate to come up with some sort of stuff. But I mean, just on the personal level, who are some people you have observed to say they have excellent communication skills? Like who resonates with you in the business world? You know, people talk about like Gary Vaynerchuk and like those people, Jordan Peterson. Right?
Elon Musk is not too terrible. I mean, he communicates with a lot of people on a different level. He talks to people about how much he likes them.
So what are the qualities that Elon Musk have that makes him influential, I would say?
He's relatable.
He's relatable? How so? He's the richest man on earth.
He likes anime. He likes Cowboy Bebop. I like Cowboy Bebop. So it's an anime show. So. And then he talks about it with people over Twitter before he bought it.
All right, so that's actually a really good point. Relatability, right? You're speaking to an audience. Elon Musk is extremely wealthy, so obviously he can come off either as a prude, right? A very wealthy guy. So a prude disassociate himself from the average person. But he doesn't do that, right? He expresses himself as an average person because he likes to be influential. And to be influential, people have to relate some sort of similarity with each other. What else? What are some other people you've observed?
Controversial. Andrew Tate. You know Andrew Tate?
Okay. We'll put Andrew Tate up here. Is he a free man right now, or?
He's free right now.
Okay. So tell me about Andrew Tate. What about him in the way that he communicates makes him stands out from the rest?
Kind of goes along with relatable, but he kind of targets the audience of young men who he shares his knowledge with and kind of motivates them to kind of follow his footsteps. And he uses that his success kind of to encourage them, I guess you could say.
Right? It's not what you say, it's how you say it. We could all be saying the exact same stuff, right? But one person is going to gather more attention than the next person. Has Andrew Tate said anything new? No, nothing's new under the sun. The only thing that's new is how you say it. How creatively you've said the same thing that people have been saying a long time, but now you've gathered their attention because you said it in a way. Why do we like certain hip hop songs? Like some of these, like the metaphors, right? Like the metaphors, how we attach things to other things. Like, man, that's pretty cool the way Wayne or Kanye said that thing, right? You ain't say nothing new, but at the same time, it's how you say it, right? And so as you're working on your projects and eventually you're gonna be outside here and everybody's gonna be in your face, think about that. What's going to right, when you communicate, what's gonna separate you from everybody else? Right, we all speak English here. What's gonna separate you? It could be your vocabulary. Maybe some people have more eloquent vocabulary than others. gesture, maybe it's your posture, body language. Maybe you're straight to the point. Other people draw things out, right? Point is, you're you. You have key features about yourself and how you communicate that are effective only if you actually utilize those skill sets and not try to be something you're not, which we talked about last class, right? So differentiate yourself. Be unique. It'll grab people's attention. What else? Who else have you observed today? Yes?
Mike Tyson, he speaks with like the way he talks about certain people, he speaks with respect, and he talks about them like real nicely, and he just knows what he's talking about, so he has that confidence despite how he sounds.
All right, so Mike Tyson, right? We used to, back in the day, maybe, when you guys were kids, people would make fun of Mike Tyson all the time, right? He talks with a lisp, right? And sometimes he would say things in ways that you really couldn't understand, But then if you really thought about it, what he was saying made a ton of sense. So it took a long time for people to kind of catch up to Mike Tyson, because before he was a joke, now he's more of a philosophical kind of guy. He's more poetic now. People look up and listen to his message, right? So I say Mike Tyson is poetic. You look up his interviews and he's telling stories, right? There's all these guys who tell old stories. And so if you lived around a time to kind of know these stories and now you're able to hear the details of them, you'll be interested, right? So just think, whoever you guys are into now, one day they'll be telling the stories and the details of how that song got wrote, right? How did that boxing match actually happen? What happened? Tupac got killed or something, right? But the point is, they're able to paint a picture in people's minds. Can you paint pictures in people's minds? Can you set up a good story? A good story. When you communicate in an email, in a paper, you've already been taught this, right? You got your introduction, the body paragraph, most of the work in the middle. You have a closing. You should always have that. And so, for example, how you talk to people should be how you should be in real life. So you shoot an email to someone, right? As a business person, as a student, right? You say, okay, we're not working, but technically you are. You substituted not being in the marketplace to work full time, right? And pursue these great careers to be here. So really, this is your job, right? College right now is literally your job because it costs money. It costs money to be here. So it's either like, hey, do you take your job seriously, or you goof off on your job? Eventually, you get the results. So if you complain about the results and you say, oh man, I don't get it, why it didn't work out? You know why. Everybody knows why. It's just a matter of if we accept the whys or not. So how you do everything at your job is important. How you do everything at school is important because you're competing. This is the marketplace. This room full of people from different ethnic backgrounds, right? Socioeconomic status, religious backgrounds, gender, sex, all these different things. This is who you're going to be competing against for jobs, or potentially who will start businesses and you'll have to compete with them in some form or fashion. So the point is, everything should be taken kind of seriously. I wouldn't say seriously, but professional. Key word here is being professional, right? Key word here is being professional. So if you meet somebody in person, you walk up to them and you say, hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you. Professor Ross, hey, how's your family doing? Like, oh, that's an intro, right? You didn't just walk up and make me intimidated, start talking about some business deals and money and you start off everything, even if it's an email. Hey, such and such, I hope you're having a good week so far. Now you get to the point of why you're messaging, right? close it out, right? See you soon, have a great week, enjoy your weekend, such and such. That's how it should go. It shouldn't just go like, hey, here's the email, and everything's all over the place. Everything should be concisely separated right there. All right, so everything should be separated in some form or fashion. I think I made the light go, right? Let's see if this works. All right, so we got Andrew Tate, Mike Tyson, Elon Musk. Who else?
Tim Cook.
Who?
Tim Cook.
Okay, Tim Cook. Tell me about Tim.
I remember seeing a video of him trying to advertise a new device, and he opened it by asking the crowd what they thought the small pocket jeans, like, you know how they have that butt pocket and then a smaller inside pocket. He's kind of asking them what they thought the use of that was, if there was any use of it. He's always questioned it, something everyone else probably has questioned as well. And then he pulled out their new device, which fit inside the pocket. They used something that was already there, probably didn't really have a use for.
Yeah, people never really use that.
Yeah, and created something that they could then use it for to advertise his device.
It's a questions. Okay, communication starts with questions. You come up here and you're like, hey, I'm gonna talk about my company, I'm gonna talk about XYZ. Some people come up here and say, and my company is Apple, and they made. That's an approach. I'm not saying it's bad. Point is, just all types of different approaches, right? Somebody else walk up here and say, hey, let me ask you a question. Have you ever had this such and such, such and such? What do you think about that? And then people wake up.
Attention catcher.
Right? Say, oh, yeah, I know that, right? Different approaches. Tim Cook starts out with a question. And the question would be something obvious. Why is it obvious? Because everybody can talk about it. Right? Not singling out one specific little tiny group or some complex thing that nobody really knows about except for a handful of people. So, questions. Start out with questions, right? Especially if you're doing it in person. I'm not saying all this applies in the same medium. This doesn't all apply in an email, in person, in a presentation format, in a text message. I would say this is more for presentation. We want to get people's attention, questions. If you skip on something, ask a question. You need to buy more time. Like, man, I lost my train of thought. Ask a question. You got an extra minute to gather your thoughts together. All right, so Tim Cook. Tim Cook asks questions and he asks things about the obvious, like a little side pocket on your jeans that no one ever really uses. Before we continue, I was saying, so think when you write an email format. All right, so you say intro, body, conclusion, above here be greeting, and credentials. Yeah, you could say, okay, Right, which a lot of people have email signatures. So think about it. Like even as students, you send an email. Does it have your credentials at the bottom? Like John Smith, college business student at Dominican, right? Blah 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 blah. Like, hey, that's something that counts. That matters. That means you're a little bit more serious. You view yourself a little bit more serious than maybe the other person who didn't do that. Everything counts because the big word here is this. This is huge. Right? We all perceive other people in certain ways. How you dress. You're like, well, they didn't give me a chance. You don't have a chance. Right? Your window of opportunity is that time. It's not gonna happen again. You only got a short window of opportunity for anything in life. Right? So presentation is key. So in a business setting, this is school, so this is different, right? Dress casual and comfortable because you gotta go to all these classes. But in a business setting, how you present yourself, you're only giving yourself one opportunity to make an impression. And really that first impression sticks. So you go on an online date or something, they wore their shabby clothes, and then you're like, that's it. No, you're not my type, right? You're like, oh, give me another chance. It was a bad day. I didn't do my hair. That's it. You gotta move on, right? So always present yourself in your best. In anything you're writing, anything if you're presenting, any sort of communication. This is part of business. So you say how a lot of guys get the deals? I don't know, maybe they showed up. They showed up and someone said, hey, I like you. I like you. I want to deal with you rather than that other person. Like, why? But the other person got way more credentials. Like, I don't care. I don't like his attitude, I don't like the way he dressed, I don't like this and that. This is how it works. Right? So always show your best. So I was, used to be a real estate broker, and some of the people who had just started out, they have their car. They have their little putt-putt car, right? Their little beater car. And the thing is, they would lose a lot of clients that way. Because, once again, it's just impression, right? Because we all have these biases and things like that. But clients would say like, I'd rather work with that person who pulled up an Audi. Or whatever, the band, you're like, well, that's not fair, that's not right. Yeah, you're right, it's not. But at the end of the day, this person's gonna get more money. Because you only got a certain amount of time to present to people who you are, or who you think you are, right? Because they'll see that, like, this is how you feel about yourself. Like, you feel this way about yourself. And then like, this person feels like $1 billion, because that's how they present themselves. Who you want to deal with? Probably the person who feels like $1 million about themselves. Right? And so not only is this a physical thing, it's besides the car. It's more so just a whole picture of how you feel about yourself is expressed in how you write, how you talk, how you dress, everything you do. Right? It's communicate. We're non-verbal communication. Right? Just walking down the street, you're observing people, we're making judgments on people. Is it ethical? Is it right? No, it's not. But it is business, it's life. You only got a certain amount of time to make judgments about people. So always present yourself the best. The other part is straight to the point. If you're conducting business, people have their business mindset on. They're already coming to it thinking that either you're gonna scam them, you're trying to get away from, get over on them, et cetera, et cetera. Or we're sitting here in the audience and you thinking like, hey, my presentation is so great, I'm gonna keep everyone's attention. And then you talk for 2 minutes and everybody's looking at their phone. Like, what happened? Be straight to the point. At least if you're straight to the point, at least they heard what I said. That's all that matters. It's human nature that will get bored, right? Look at our phones, laptops, whatever. Straight to the point. You gotta be effective to say, hey, here's my mission, my vision, my objective. This is why I think it'll work. And maybe here's some of the numbers of what we expect, how we expect things to be. All right, who else? Who else have you observed? It could be anybody. It could be somebody like, hey, my mom, my dad, my cousin, my uncle. Just tell me about it. Yes.
Kim Kardashian.
Kim K.
Yeah. I feel like because of her background, like no one takes her seriously because she's a reality star. But now she's like going to law school and she has like successful businesses. And like when she does interviews, they like try to ask her like hard questions to like make her look stupid. But she like always keeps like her composure. She always like answers like very professionally.
So what do you think her trick is? Like, what does she do to be effective?
Very confident.
All right, so confidence. Confidence. Who here feels like, hey, they could use a little bit more confidence? Like, hey, I'm not the most confident person. And like, tell me why. Why do you think so? Okay.
I don't know, I guess it just goes back to like social anxiety and like what people think of me. It's a lot of overthinking.
Okay, so a little bit of neurotic, right? You're overanalyzing, thinking.
Yeah.
And we, as a therapist, I could think of some of the reasons where it comes from, like the origins of Genesis, right? Typically it comes from childhood development and stuff like that. But how do you think you'll get over it? Like, what are some of the ways?
I guess a lot of like practice.
So what do you do to make yourself like, I'm ready to talk and present? Like, how do you gear yourself ready?
I actually watch her interviews and just like get like inspired by her and like how she like handles being under pressure a lot.
I think that's excellent. Right? You watch interviews for inspiration. Excellent, right? You watch people that think, man, that person is awesome to talk to, right? They were on Jimmy Kimmel or Joe Rogan's podcast or something like that. And you were saying back there, confidence? Yeah.
I think it's just like at least like now where it's like more of a professional world, like it's like different from like high school.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to like learn, like I have to learn how to be
Adjust.
confident in what I'm doing, so that they won't like make me feel like I'm not.
Yeah, and I get that. Right? It's an adjustment. You just came from high school, so it's like, okay, I'm with a bunch of adults, and we got houses and cars and businesses, and they may think I'm some kid who doesn't know anything, stuff like that. Right? That's natural. You'll get over it quickly. You'll realize that the adults you observe way more screwed up than you guys, right? And that you actually have an advantage. So you gotta flip it. You have to say, what do I have an advantage of these so-called people who, up in the ivory tower? The advantage is your youth. The advantage is like, hey, I don't get that person's debt. I don't have any kids. I don't got that responsibility. I don't have that stress or anxiety. You say it all looks great, Professor Ross. All looks wonderful. truth is, it takes a lot. It's a lot of work, right? You say, hey, I still got a blank slate. You guys are at an advantage to most. And maybe the grown-up adults, right, who we in a professional setting, maybe they're actually looking at you, they're like, man, I wish I was 19 again, with no kids, no debt, right? No responsibility. I just hang out, go to class, and just chill, go back home to my parents. So I mean, the thing is, it's all about how you think. Literally ask yourself, why do I think this way? You have to come up with some real answers. Right? Because your emotions come from thinking. And so it means if you can't control your emotions, it means you can't control your thoughts. Your thoughts escape you. Right? So how do you get past your thoughts escaping? I would say the number one thing, this is just personal, you have to become more philosophical about everything. Which means that everything you've been taught in life, you got to start to unlearn it or relearn it, you know, because most of it's not real. Most of it doesn't apply to you because you're your own individual case, you know. I think once you do that, you eliminate the anxiety, because now you have anxiety because of all the concepts that you've been taught, right? So I teach learned behavior, how we learn. We learn through different ways. What you call conditioning. You literally are under a program. But which program are you under, Professor Ross? I don't know, iOS 11.03. Your mind is literally on a program. It's a program for fears, it's a program for belief systems, values, what to wear, how to look. It's all a program. You're programmed. You can unprogram your mind, deprogram it, reprogram it. It's all up to you. But sometimes that doesn't come to you until you get experience, right? Which means you got to go through a lot of bad stuff, then you learn from that, learn from more stuff, learn from this, right? But here's the thing, the bad stuff is learning, right? And so it's really how you look at it. Like, man, this is gonna make me feel uncomfortable. Awesome, I'm glad it does. So that you can get over it. You'll never get over it if you don't do it. Right? You know, if you do it enough, now it's a habit. And habits just become part of who you are. It becomes a nothing anymore, right? So you're like, hey, Professor Ross, I want to teach and be a professor. Like, yeah, do it 100 times. You wouldn't care. It become a habit. You know, so that's anything, literally anything. You can teach yourself anything. Anybody can learn to be an engineer, trigonometry, even if you suck at it. If you do it enough, literally your mind, your body will absorb it, remember it, and start to reprogram itself to get it. So that goes for fear, it goes for self-esteem, that goes for confidence. It's all mental constructs. Confidence and self-esteem is built on some mental constructs of how you view the world. You think in the world some people are better than you. It's a complete lie, right? Complete, better than how? Money makes people better than you. Where'd you get that from? Right? So these are all constructs. So eventually you have to reject them and say, no, I'm an individual just out in the world, and I want to do all this stuff. I don't care what people think. I don't care how people think I look, or what. But it doesn't matter. You won't even see the people anymore. So what do you gotta think about that, right? Second of all, like learning a little bit about psychology, we forget things in 15 minutes. If you came up here and made a presentation, it was the worst presentation ever, we'll remember for 30 minutes, and then tomorrow, we want to know your name. That's how it works. But if you get that, you can have superpowers. You can have superpowers. You could be like, hey, you could go out and you could, not that I'm a fan of Trump like that, but you could go, you could be like Trump. But how do you get away just by saying this stuff? Because he doesn't care what you think. He don't care what no one else thinks. In some odd way, that is a superpower. Right, man, I wish I had that. You could say it in front of the whole world and not care. That's why we call most CEOs sociopaths. Say most CEOs at the top of the top. The only way to do that job, the only way to fire 18,000 people and lay them off so that you can keep the company going is to have that mindset. Which means it's not for everybody. Right? It's not for everybody. But you can build up that sort of mindset. And I'm not saying the mindset is bad, it could be awesome. You may have built a company that gave people 18,000 jobs, you know, like Elon Musk or Bill Gates. They're a huge part of our economy. So yes, these people have some sort of superpower where they look at society and say, oh, those are nice social constructs. Which takes a little bit of intelligence, a little bit of experience, a little bit of DNA. Sometimes you're born with it, right? But takes philosophy. So I ask you, like, hey, what is your philosophy on life? And if you don't have one, like, you should start adapting one. You should have some sort of philosophy about your life. Okay, so Kim K, she's confident and she's inspirational, right? Confident, inspirational because people perceive her to be sort of ditzy, right? And she's not, she's in law school, she has a ton of money, successful, pretty eloquent in her interviews, right? So confidence is key. Who else? So anybody else? Like anybody personal, you know, you're like, hey, my dad, my mom, my cousin, my uncle, they got a rich uncle, and he got some great communication.
I guess a good one could be my dad.
Okay, tell me some key facets about your dad.
Well, he was a businessman. He ran 3 restaurants. They weren't like high end, but like they were pretty famous.
But what about your dad makes your dad able to do that?
Yeah, I was gonna get to that. From what he told me, he said, just by looking at it your own way. He told me so many people try to influence his business. So many people try to get in with him and change it and all these other things. He said the only reason why he was successful with these businesses and then therefore retired early was because he did what he believed in and he refused to listen to other people if he didn't follow his blueprint. So I'm assuming he had self-courage. I mean, to like dismiss all the other ideas people had for him and just follow his own path by himself and to run 3 successful restaurants and retire early.
So your dad has independent thought. He's able to think for himself, right? Like, yeah, we go to all these classes, we'll read the textbook, look at the PowerPoint, go on YouTube, listen to people talk, right? Listen to all the motivational videos in the universe. At the end of the day, you have to have an independent thought. What is your thought on the subject? If you just listen to a bunch of people, right? Go and Jordan Peterson and all these people, it's like, great, this is awesome. How does it apply to you, right? It has to have some sort of real world application, which means at the end of the day, you have to have some sort of independent thought about that subject matter, right? Yeah, have some morals, values, ethics, and maybe that's part of your independent thought. But you have to have some sort of fortitude to say, here's my thought on the subject and let me tell you why. Because if you're regurgitating what everybody else said, textbook, PowerPoint, professors, YouTubers, right? I bet that's not you, that's them. What do you think about this subject? What do you think about it? I would say a little bit of originality is key. Right, which is personal value. You should be able to value your own thoughts. your thoughts are valuable because you got different experience than everybody else. Right? You got a totally different experience. You may have a totally different world view. And it's extremely valuable. The most successful people have their idea, they never waver from it, or they're pretty stubborn to something they think that will work, and they keep at it until it finally bears fruit. I had a list, some really good managerial leadership skills. Okay, what did I have? Okay, anything else? Who else? Communication. All right. So I'm going to talk about a few things that I think are extremely important. Communication is one of them, but I just want to add these points here. To say the greatest people I've known, people who've been, worked for the United Nations or ran Fortune 500 companies, who've done a lot of cool stuff, very powerful people. What I've noticed from them, which we already talked about a couple of them, is that they're stubborn on their vision. Like, what does that mean? They're stubborn on their vision. If you have a vision in your mind, right, what you want to be here, at school or after school, when you graduate, you should stick to it, right? You have that vision for a reason. A lot of times, as time moves on, you start to doubt your own vision. But I don't think this will work, right? You wouldn't want somebody like that to lead a company. You wouldn't want somebody to just change the whole entire direction of a company. That wouldn't be good for anybody. The employees, the marketplace, that leads to high probability of failure. So if you have a mission statement or a vision, that's something that typically stays forever with the company. Never waver. Coca-Cola still does the same thing it did from 100-some years ago. Never waver, right? But what they do that adds onto that yes, stubborn on your vision and on your mission, but flexible on the details. What do I mean by that? In business, everything changes. Changes day by day. More demand, less demand. New competitors in the marketplace, right? New competitors create more challenges for you. Now you gotta change the price of stuff. You gotta maybe think innovatively how to add on to the current product you're selling or the service. So you want to be flexible on details because the name of the game is change. Things always change. You're right, hey, Professor Ross has an excellent idea for a business. Excellent. That's the beginning point. The other point is how you're going to manage to change it as time goes on, right? The next one I had was influence, which we already talked about. But after that was forward thinking. Right? Your idea doesn't just stand alone today. If you're competing against people with jobs or with a company, you have to think about, hey, where's human behavior moving to tomorrow? Yesterday it was Instagram, now it's TikTok. What's after TikTok? What do you see coming after TikTok? Are we going to be changing our behavior then? Any ideas? What's coming after TikTok?
The United States and shut down on it because of the
No,
companies with China.
TikTok's not going anywhere. The point is, it's already reinforced. This stuff, once it's reinforced, is here to stay. But I'm saying, for human behavior, start from Facebook, right? Then it went to pictures on Facebook. Everybody uploading photos. Everybody like, no, retired photos. On videos. Everybody putting up long videos on the way at YouTube. Right? People like, no, I'm tired of videos. Make them short. a little tiny movie within 2 minutes, a little story they tell, right? Retelling, reenacting. What's next? Huh?
Even shorter.
Even shorter, or maybe something else, right? Mark Zuckerberg wants metaverse. You're like, all right, Mark Zuckerberg, you reinvested billions of dollars to metaverse, whatever the next thing looks like. We've seen this, it's been here for a while, just not big. People haven't caught on, they haven't been sold. But if you were forward thinking, you would be looking at that platform, right? You say, hey, I'm gonna create meta cryptocurrency. I'm gonna create my own money in the metaverse. I'll call it Professor Ross Coin. Right? You think, wow, that's interesting. How much money? Trillions, I don't know. But the point is to be forward thinking, right? With anything that you do, you want to have a good idea where things are going based on trends and based on all the people you're competing against. You want to observe that, yeah, I noticed that people are starting to do this. If I could start supplying them ahead of time before my competitors, which we call first movers, right? Whoever moves first gets the most money. That's just the rule of thumb. Rule of thumb is whoever moves first in the market gets the most money, right? That means all the investors, they see it work, and all the money to you before all the other people start trying to follow after you and copy you. And then you'll be up on the New York Stock Exchange, you know, with an IPO and stocks and stuff. So yeah, forward thinking. So even in your presentations, think about this. You're like, hey, okay, here's the product, here's the service, here's the company, this is what we do to the future, right? At the end, you say, well, what do I expect us to be in the future? That'll separate you from a lot of people who's not talking about that. You know, it's like, here, here's some assumptions, expectations that things will be this way. And this is important. Like, you write a business plan, one of the financial statements is pro forma statement, right? Which really just made up numbers. Like, oh, year 2, year 3, year 4, these are my assumptions and expectations of how much I make. Wait, where'd you get that number from? I made them up. Why? So you can give me more money on the investment. But even that is forward thinking, right? You're trying to work your way to a goal. Next, I had so I had communication, but the part I want to talk about too is, think about this, in communication, you say, hey, I have all my ideas and my plans laid out in my head. It looks perfect in my head. I actually can say it very well to myself. As soon as I tell anybody else other than myself, it never comes out right? So some people have billion-dollar ideas in their head, but they can't express the idea effectively, right? They can't tell other people effectively so that they can get money from it, get a group, get a team of people on the project to help them make it a success. So another thing to work on is trying to relay the vision in your head, the information in your head out in the real world, right? Okay, next one was execution. Execution is just the ability to act on your thoughts, right? There's some people who just do not know how to execute because they're apprehensive, they think, they overanalyze, they overthink, and not able to take action. Once again, I said you only have a limited amount of opportunity in life. You may have 5 great opportunities that'll come at different points in your life. And if you don't take them, you will regret, right? You'll find yourself feeling like you are a failure of some sort. So the point is, when you see a window crack, you open the window, sneak in. You see the door slightly open, you stick your foot in, or you kick the door open, right? Because you will not have that many more opportunities. You think you will, but in reality, you will not. So you need to always execute when the opportunity presents itself. And that was it. That was my list right there. Any questions?
Yeah, so for the execution, you said you need to hit bullet points in order to execute it properly, or just because of your thought process to successfully execute a project?
Repeat that.
Okay, so you said for execution, it's more about hitting the bullet points, or is it more about successfully planning out the project? If that would make sense to you.
Execution has to take action when you see a window of opportunity. That's execution. Right? You don't get them in the opportunity. Or just a simple one is just think to speak up. Right? You don't speak up, no one knows. Speak up. All right, we'll finish our slides. I would say writing effectively, right? Striking the right tone with the appropriate conversational style. It's what you're talking appropriate for the topic at hand, for the subject matter. 2, conversational style. You know, are you joking too much in a professional setting and you're writing, right? Or in an email? Are you being lazy with your speech? Avoid grammatical errors. Like always use your spell check, right? Autocorrect, things like that. Remember, use block paragraphs primarily for the meat of your communication. Remember, I say, hey, it's just communicating. It's just like you walk to somebody in person. Start off with a greeting. Hey, nice to meet you, right? So even if it's in an email, you're like, hey, I hope that your week is going great. And you get to what you're talking about, right? What you're talking about, hey, have a great weekend. Sign off, yada, yada, yada. Like, well, okay, that sounds pretty professional. Right, you're able to be nice and courteous and show respect, and you're also able to get your point across of whatever it is you're communicating about, right? The thing is, people notice this, so if it's very short, there's no intro, there's no nothing, no sign off, name or anything like that, people are not going to take it serious in the business side, right? Which we just say people will find you to be unprofessional. Headings and bullets appropriately. For everything you talk about that has a subject matter, particularly in a paper or in a presentation, everything needs to have some sort of heading or subheading. This is what I'm talking about at the top. And maybe some important things on the side would be subheadings, right? Because if not, if you just put a heading, now you're talking about like 12 different things. You're like, well, as a reader, if you're considering me on the opposite side of being a reader of this material that you presented to me, I'm confused, right? So I say, hey, you wrote a paper without consideration of the reader. And that's what makes great writers. Great writers take consideration of the reader. Right? And they say, hey, if I was reading this, how would that go? How would that sound? Which is,
Thank you.
which is important to proofread. Who here proofreads? Their text message, their emails. Who here doesn't proofread? You just said it. Right, we all make mistakes, right? We're in a time crunch or what have you. It's always important to proofread. Why? Remember we said, in life, it's called conditioning. Conditioning is just a fancy word for practice, for training. Anything that you do in life, you are training yourself to be better at if you do it over and over and over again. So the point is, if you want to be great at something, you have to do it over and over again, right? Remember we said opening is grabbing attention, typically something of importance to get people engaged. Body use no more than 4 of the main points, explain them. This is for verbal presentations, by the way. And then your closing. I think we talked about this. All right, dynamic delivery. Know your material, but never memorize it word for word, right? There's no need, keep bullet points in your head, to be honest. That's what makes you a great presenter. Bullet points in your head. Yeah, they're on the screen, but keep them in your head too. Look directly at members of your audience at least 50% of the time. Always find that one to be hard for people, right? Because it does go to confidence or sometimes how you were raised and things like that. Some people don't look people in the eye. Right? No monotone voice. Express yourself different ways based on what you're talking about. Selective notes, you can write them on your hand or just a little flashcard. I would say a flashcard is good. A piece of paper, not so much, right? Once again, consider your audience. If you're watching it, a piece of paper is distracting, right? It makes it uncomfortable. So I think one of the key takeaways is think of, hey, if I'm presenting this and I'm watching this, like always considering the opposite. Like if I'm a presenter, like I'm watching this, will I be engaged? Right? Will this be interesting the way that I'm presenting it? Stick to your allotted time. In my other class, one of my other business courses, a lot of presenters don't look at the time. Right? And they'll go on, and like by the time it's like time for everybody to leave class, we didn't even have time for questions, right? Stick to time. And especially besides out of class, time is extremely important to people, and people find it to be very rude. Very rude if you went over your time. Pace yourself, right? Don't talk fast if you don't naturally talk fast. Talk like you talk. Once you start talking a different way, now you'll confuse yourself, you'll get nervous, and everything will be ruined. Don't apologize unless you really did something wrong, right? Sometimes apologies are necessary if there's something very minor. Use natural gestures to who you are. Don't be up here like a robot. All right, communication channel is effective when it's selected by understanding its impact towards the decision made, which means the selection of right words encourages the audience to stay with the speaker. Presenting is not everybody's strong point. Some people write wonderful papers, but they're not great presenters. Some people are great at talking in front of people, but they're not good writers. So I say just trying to stick to your best. All right, and which I just talked about. Effective business writing involves considering the needs of one's audience. So always place yourself in the position of your audience. And successful verbal presentations are created and delivered by understanding their structure and the impact on the audience. Any questions?
Would you recommend that when they're writing the pitch for a product or an item, that they represent themselves? let's example, like when we're presenting our projects to, the cast at the end of the year. Will we pitch ourselves as teams, or will we pitch ourselves as individuals?
I mean, both. You do both, right? Yes, you're part of the group, but you're also an individual that's contributed something to them, which means like, hey, we're this group. You know, I contribute to the marketing. Marketing was my key thing, right? I'm more of the management, more of the finance, things like that. So both. You want to have a little bit of both. Any other questions? Let's skip on to chapter 6 real quick and just get that one started. All right, business formation and project 1 group final presentations. Wow. You guys excited about the presentations? Everybody's gonna be asking a ton of questions. I get emails, they're like, oh, how's your class coming along? Because there's 2 other classes that are, 2 or 3, that's gonna be presenting with you. So the point is, I want you all to destroy those other classes. Right?
I like the way you're putting it.
Easy one.
Easy one.
The point is, I want you to be extremely confident about what you're saying. I want it to be a no-brainer, right? Walk in like, if you really started the company, it means nothing. Well, yeah, you were gonna say something.
Is it due the 13th?
What's that?
The presentation. It says due the 13th.
No, yeah, I'm gonna leave it open. You know, I'm pretty flexible on time, right? I'm not gonna press you for it. I do, if something is due and it's like talking in front of class, I do want that part done. But if you're like, hey, the actual physical submission of something, I'll be flexible. But if it's like, hey, a presentation, yeah, I want it done that week. That way we can have you talk.
So when's the presentation gonna be?
Today is the 9th.
So at the group presentation at the end of the semester. Wait, which one are we talking about?
We're talking about this one right here.
Yeah, the final presentation at the end of the semester. That's it.
Yeah, these are 2 different things. Yeah, let's figure this out.
Jeez. Yeah, I know, but that's next week.
All right, I'll figure this out, the due date. I have to run back and look at this stuff a little bit more. So I'll send a notification, an announcement.
Professor.
Yeah.
So me and my group were brainstorming, and one of the final products we came down to presenting for our group projects was whiskey. Are we allowed to do that?
Yeah, why not?
I don't know why we wouldn't. I mean, it's college.
Whiskey? Yeah, whiskey. Yeah, definitely. I think food and beverage should probably be a big one that a lot of people are looking at. Anybody else? Questions about, yeah?
So for this weekend, we have the exam, we're gonna post the exam.
Yeah, I'll post the exam, tomorrow you'll have through the weekend to complete the exam.
Through Sunday.
Through Sunday at midnight, yeah.
Tuesday, there's quiz.
Yeah, the quiz will be next week. So typically, if you see quiz for next week, I'll allow you time to finish it early. It won't be done that day.
Most assignments are kind of like put off.
Yeah, I'm gonna be flexible on timing, so I typically, if it's like a quiz or something of that sort, you could have it turn in by the end of the week. Okay, we could just skip to this part now. Okay, business ownership. We'll just start off with this so you can get an idea. So, how do you actually start a business? How do you legally start a business, Professor Ross? Well, here in the United States, you start a business by going through the Secretary of State, right? Or the business division for any state. Now, you could open up a business in any state that you like, that you're going to do business in. So you say, hey, where do I want to start the parent company, right? The formation of my actual business. But if you ever look at any of your credit card statements or a lot of billing statements, you think, well, that's interesting. Most of it comes from the state of Delaware, right? Delaware is the first state in the United States. So they've been handling business and the creation of businesses for a long time. So many people start to form a business in the state of Delaware because it's very flexible on the rules and laws, a lot more flexible than others. But just to say, for example, here in the state of Illinois, so look it up so we can have a visual representation. Real quick, we'll look it up. I know we've got a few minutes. All right, business. Here in Secretary of State, let's say start an LLC. See, there's a lot of companies that make a lot of money off people trying to start one. With literally just go on the Secretary of State's website. All right, you want to form a business. Well, first of all, you got to figure out what kind of business you're starting. You say, hey, it's just me, Professor Ross, by myself. I just want to start a business. What should I do? Here, you most likely want to start a LLC, a limited liability corporation. Typically, what something means is typically hidden in the word itself. Limited liability corporation. Which means you've separated liability for some activities away from you, personally, right? So in essence, you've created another person. An LLC could be considered like, I've created another person besides me. And this person will buy stuff, do transactions, maybe get a car, maybe buy a building, but it's not me, it's a company, right? So that's a way you can think about it. On any state website, you can go on and pay the money. There's always a fee. Articles of organization, which will show like, hey, who are the members of the people starting this company, name, address, whatever, right? Typically they'll ask for like a treasurer or somebody else. They ask for like 2 people at least to put names on there as backups. Sometimes you can put yourself twice, right? So there's what loopholes to get around. But you need to figure out what kind of business you're going to start. Is it something just gonna be by yourself? Right? Are you going into business with some people, 2 or more people? You're gonna have a partnership. You're like, hey, so you can have a general partnership, just 2 people take on all 100% of the liability. Anything happens, it falls back on them equally. You can say a limited partnership, we're gonna divide it percentage of what we actually are responsible for. So if anything gets sued or money taken away, they only can sue this guy 25% because he only owns 25%. They can sue the other guy who's part of the partnership 70%. Right? And then we got sole proprietorship. You can do that too. We just single owner. LLC is a sole proprietorship in some form or fashion. And then you just got basic corporations, which are S Corp, C Corp, and things like that. It looks like we're running out of time, but we'll cover this. This is the interesting stuff. This means you can go start you a business tomorrow, today, and have a real one up and running. Any questions?
How much is the fee?
About $750.
$750.
Yeah.
Is that a renewal system or something?
Oh, you know what, no, it's 150, I'm sorry, it's $150.
$150 for renewal system.
Yeah. Yeah, well,